It was a cold afternoon in late October, 1996, in Philadelphia. Inside the great halls of the U.S. Mint, thousands upon thousands of Lincoln cents were being struck at a relentless pace. Machines clanged, conveyors rolled, and the rhythmic pulse of production echoed off the walls, almost like the heartbeat of a mechanical giant. Copper-plated zinc blanks were fed through coining presses, stamped with the image of the 16th president, and shot out into the real world, a blur of bronze destined for pockets, purses, and soda machines across the nation. The 1996 1-cent penny was, by all official accounts, unremarkable. A simple continuation of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which had been in use since 1959. By now, the design was ubiquitous, familiar to every American. Abraham Lincoln's profile faced right, sharp and firm, unchanged, steady through the decades. The date, 1996, rested just under the curve of his shoulder, the mint mark to the right, and the reverse side bore the classic Lincoln Memorial. Millions would be minted, more than enough to go unnoticed. And yet, somewhere in the chaos of that year's production, something peculiar crept in, a sliver of mistake, so slight, so subtle that even seasoned eyes might have missed it. And alarms rang. No headlines blared. The error slipped past every checkpoint, carried away in boxes marked for distribution. It rode the currents of commerce unnoticed for years. That is, until one autumn morning nearly a decade later, when Harold Lentz, a soft-spoken coin collector from Des Moines, Iowa, pulled out a handful of change after buying coffee from a roadside diner. He wasn't hunting. In fact, he barely glanced at the coins. But something, maybe a trick of the light, made him pause. He felt it before he even looked. That odd tingle collectors speak of, the gut whisper that something is different. Holding the coin between his fingers, he squinted. 1996. Nothing unusual at first. Lincoln looked fine. The mint mark, a clear D, was there, though something about it felt off. He flipped it over. The Lincoln Memorial gleamed. But then he turned it again. His brows furrowed. Under magnification later at home, what had seemed familiar began to unravel. The D mint mark looked as though it were floating, oddly placed, with a strange doubling just around its edges. And the date? Not quite clean. The 6 was unusually thick, so thick, in fact, that it appeared to have been struck twice. Over the next several weeks, Harold became consumed by the coin. He pulled out every reference guide he owned, cross-checked every known error from that year, contacted online forums, reached out to numismatic experts. And slowly, the pieces came together. What he held was no ordinary penny. It was a 1996 double die obverse, an error so subtle that it had slipped under the radar of the entire collecting community for years. But there was more. This was not the common kind of doubling, a mechanical misalignment or a worn die. No, this was a true double die. The error had occurred not during the strike, but in the creation of the die itself. Somewhere during the die hubbing process, a second, slightly misaligned impression had been imparted onto the working die, which then faithfully transferred its doubled features onto every cent it struck. The results were quiet but unmistakable. The thickening of the numbers in the date, the odd, almost ghost-like impression around liberty, and that curious distortion in the motto, "In God We Trust." To the untrained eye, it looked like nothing at all. To Harold, it looked like treasure. Word began to spread, first through whispers on coin forums, then through more formal channels. A few others came forward. Another collector in Arizona had found a similar specimen. A man in Michigan claimed he had one too, though his was heavily circulated. But the true magnitude of the error remained hidden. No one could say how many existed, or if there were other variations. The 1996 double die penny remained elusive, like a shadow in the periphery. Harold held onto his. Offers began rolling in. First small, curious collectors asking for photos, lowball bids. Then came the big guns. Dealers with gleaming reputations, auction houses sniffing for potential gold, one even proposing a public unveiling at a national coin show. But Harold refused to sell. For him, it wasn't about the money. It was about what the coin represented, an echo from the past, a mistake that bridged decades, history captured in metal. Yet the market told a different story. As more collectors hunted the 1996 penny with renewed vigor, sightings of the double-die variant remained rare. Demand surged. A high-grade example surfaced at an estate sale in 2013 and fetched several $1,000s, nearly 20 times its estimated value. Another, graded MS-66 read by PCGS, sold in a private transaction rumored to be in the five-figure range. But the details were murky. No photographs were released. No names attached. Still, the whispers persisted. Over the years, value climbed slowly, then sharply. As fewer specimens surfaced, demand only grew. Collectors began to look closer at their change. Dealers included the 1996 penny in their must-check lists. Every minor doubling was scrutinized, examined, and debated. But few met the precise characteristics of the real double die, that distinct thickening of the date, the subtle distortion in Lincoln's profile, the ghostly halo around the inscriptions. It was the kind of error that defied expectation. Subtle enough to vanish in plain sight, but once spotted, impossible to unsee. And then, just when the market seemed to settle into a lull, came the twist, one that would rock the numismatic world to its core. In 2022, a retired mint employee named Clarence Hobbs stepped forward with a story that stunned even the most hardened skeptics. Hobbs had worked briefly at the Philadelphia Mint in the mid-90s. He was a machinist, low on the totem pole, but privy to just enough. In a recorded interview, he claimed that during a late-night shift in September 1995, while preparing new dies for the following year's penny production, a supervisor discovered a misaligned hubbing on one of the working dies. "It wasn't bad enough to trash," Hobbs said. "Just a little off. We figured it'd get caught in QC, but it didn't." The die, according to Hobbs, was used for a limited run, likely less than 250,000 coins. Then it was replaced quietly, without documentation. The coins it produced? Released into circulation with the rest. No separate logs, no alerts. Just another day at the mint. Collectors were stunned. For years, they had assumed the error was random, isolated. But Hobbs' revelation suggested something more deliberate, a human decision, a judgment call that changed the course of the coin's destiny. The result? A coin that was never meant to exist in quantity. A phantom error, caught between oversight and indifference. The twist sent shockwaves through the community. Authentication demands soared. Submissions to grading services doubled. And when a pristine, untouched specimen surfaced on the market just months later, verified by PCGS, bearing the now coveted double die features, it shattered all previous sales records. In a fiercely competitive private auction, the coin sold for $96,000. For a penny. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A 1-cent coin, born of quiet error and preserved by sheer accident, had become a titan of value. And yet, there was still more mystery than certainty. Just how many were out there? Was Hobbs telling the full truth? Could another box of uncirculated 1996 decents be sitting in a vault, forgotten? Or were all the rest long since spent, ground down in circulation, doomed to vanish beneath the wear of time? Collectors today still debate the coin's future. Some say its value will plateau, others believe it will climb as the pool of surviving examples dwindles. But for those like Harold Lentz, who found magic in the mundane, the coin's true value can't be measured in dollars alone. It's a piece of American history, one forged not by design, but by accident, stubbornness, and chance. And somewhere out there, in a forgotten jar, an attic drawer, or a dusty piggy bank, another 1996 double-die penny waits to be found, quiet, unassuming, worth a single cent or maybe a small fortune.